narcissistic abuse, to get out of the circles you're thinking, you need to expand in every possible way. So there's a lot of health things you can do to bring your brain back in a better situation. Like everything which is healthy for you in normal life is healthy for your brain. Like oxygen, water, training, nice environments, nature, whatever there is.
Many people who have become traumatized by a psychopath feel that they need to do trauma work in order to heal themselves. But it is very important to take into account how much self-healing capacity is there, how much ego strength is there. Because if the self-healing capacity is too low, if one has been weakened too much and one does trauma work, for instance EMDR, then it is possible that one gets re-traumatized and that the problem becomes even more severe. So what I recommend to people is that they invest in their inner comfort by giving themselves many positive experiences that are nourishing for themselves and that strengthen their foundation. And then when they are strong enough and the need is still there to do trauma work, then it is much safer to do it.
There was abuse in my childhood, and it geared me up for this relationship. It really did, because I think I subconsciously recognized his behavior and felt comfortable with it, because it was what I was used to. I was used to having my feelings ignored, having my emotions minimized. So even if it's unhealthy, if it's something you're used to, you're comfortable with it.
If you've had a nice childhood, a nice person is going to feel like home. Well, the same goes for abusers. If you've grown up with abusers, you feel attracted to this certain type of energy that abusers have. They're like unconscious patterns. It's not like you really choose for it. It's just they feel so familiar that you feel attracted to them.
I think my mom was a narcissist too, but a covert narcissist, so she wasn't grandiose, she was the opposite. She made herself extremely small so that everyone would flock around her with attention. Because my brothers were very sensitive to that, because I feel like boys and their moms have a different bond. They just wanted her happy, and she controlled them by like being this banshee, you know, but always being the victim, crying, how can you do this to your mother, you know?
My father, he was like a full-on narcissistic psychopath. Even though he was a person who would be very kind and friendly to the outside world, behind closed doors, he was like a monster. And because his abuse was so openly, I felt from a very young age like, I don't need anything from this guy. Nothing good comes from this guy. So all my hopes as a child went to my mom. So I felt really close to my mom. So the damage done to me was much worse by my mom, because I didn't see it coming.
What I do blame her for is kind of not making sure me and my brothers had a good bond. She basically drove us apart by means of favoritism. They were a team and I was just an island.
She was very manipulative. She would set people up against each other. She would always criticize, belittle, laugh about other people behind their backs. Use the children and use the talents of children to make herself look good, but emotionally neglect the children. She would like have a favorite and make the other person or the other kid feel like less worthy, and the favorite child that would it would change. It wasn't the same person all the time.
I felt like in a lot of ways she was envious of me because I was a girl and I just did things. I was confident. I don't know where I got the confidence, but I was confident. I was very entrepreneurial. I did things even though no one helped me or no one supported me. And I felt like she was kind of envious of my drive that I got from literally nowhere because no one ever encouraged me to do anything. Yet here I was writing books and I was doing things, and I think she was kind of envious.
And when I learned about narcissism, I was finally able to understand my childhood, because earlier sometimes I would still get angry at my mom, thinking like, how could she do that to me? How could she be so insensitive or so mean to me? But once I learned about narcissism, and the one thing that narcissists don't have is empathy. So when I learned that she didn't have empathy and that it wasn't really her fault as well, because she was a victim too, I finally realized that it had nothing to do with me. And to me, that part, that it had nothing to do with me, was very important for my healing process.
I come from a loving family. I got everything that I ever wanted and all that stuff, but I'm just completely naive. I grew up in an environment which was very safe, and when somebody tells me something, I believe them. I trust everybody. I trust everything all the time. So I guess if somebody sees a person like me, I'm an easy prey, because you can tell me anything and I'll believe you.
Looking back on it, the most important part of being a victim, victim, I hate the word, of being with a narcissist is being codependent. You have to feel like your happiness and someone else's happiness can't exist next to each other, and it has to come from somewhere, from childhood maybe. Maybe as a kid you were used to, ignoring your own sadness to bring the family together or make sure everyone else felt better, and you take that into adulthood. You try to say, it's kind of like savior syndrome. Like, if he's with me, if I love him enough, then it'll be fine. If I'm empathetic enough, if I'm patient enough, he'll be fine.
I went in therapy. I knew I had a problem with boundaries. I was too forgiving. I was too much of a people pleaser. I was always trying to keep the peace, even though I was harming myself as well. The more I stayed away from this person, and the more I learned about narcissism, because I had no idea what narcissism was. So I learned the traits, and I also learned that I had dealt with narcissistic people a lot. And so I saw a pattern there, and once I knew what the pattern was, I could break it. The moment I started to remove these type of people out of my life, I started to feel better. I started to feel happier. My health was improving. Every level of my life started to improve.
It was a progress. In the beginning, I was just broken. I would look in the mirror and I would see no one I recognized, and my inner voice was replaced with his. So every time I looked at myself, I heard, "You are unattractive. You are dumb. You are like, I don't understand how anyone can handle being with you." That's what I heard for the longest time. And what I did was not resist it. I would just sit in that feeling, not rejecting it, not fighting it. And then at some point I just knew logically that at some point, if you take it one day at a time, it'll get better. And I noticed when I didn't cry every morning, then okay, so that's done. Now we can work on what got you in this situation in the first place.
I find it a lot harder to trust people after this happened, because before that I was naive and I trusted everybody, and whatever somebody would say, I would think that's the truth and I would trust them. I don't do that anymore. Well, I have to rephrase that. I still do, but I noticed the red flags a lot sooner. I still trust people, I still believe what they say in first, when I first hear it, but as soon as there's something off, a little bit, the red flags go up and I'm out. I don't want to have anything to do with these people anymore. I'm much more, I trust everybody, but as soon as they make one little mistake, that's it. I got a lot more sensitive. I notice the small things that are off.
It is a lot harder for me to trust people, especially because you simply can't guarantee yourself that you'll never meet another narcissist. But I just promised myself to really go with that gut feeling. Like if I see signs of manipulation or isolation, for instance, I'm not staying as long as I would have stayed earlier. In a relationship, you should feel like yourself. And my biggest sign that I'm dealing with a narcissist is that I'm feeling smaller, like I have to fight to be seen, you know? And in any case, that's not a healthy dynamic. So yeah, I've learned to choose for my own happiness, and as long as I can trust myself on making strong decisions, I'll be fine.
I wasn't given a lot, but I was given an extremely strong personality. I feel like that the core of who I am has stayed the same. And I lost that for a second. I lost it. And after him, I just found it back again. Honestly, I just picked up where I left off with a healthier sense of self-worth, basically.
This is maybe strange, but I always felt this, immediately after it happened, I felt this can be the worst thing that ever happened to me, or it can be the best thing that ever happened to me. And it turned out it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it really made me rediscover myself in a way. And notice, because before I met her, I had a lot of friends and did a lot of social things and blah, 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 I don't know. And it all went away when I was in a relationship, and afterwards, I found out that I still have that, and my friends came back to me, and I am a good and a nice person, and that for some reason I appreciated it a lot more after this thing happened.
If you had plans before, you'll have plans after. You know what I mean? If you were someone who is dedicated to making something out of themselves, you will. You might have to work through trauma, but you'll get there. So if a narcissist would see that I'm so much better now, they would probably say, see, I did that. That's what I did. It was good for something. It's so stupid.
Friends know not, lovers do. I met a different kind of you. Oh yeah. In a way, the perfect guy said he loved me until I died. But then, oh well. Didn't see the jealousy was slowly suffocating me. And who's he to you? Wanted me to prove my love, no kind of proof was enough, but baby, I loved you alright. There were no boundaries to your anger, hurting me. I was so confused. If I could heal wounds with love, turn your anger